What's going on, guys? Welcome back. Welcome back. Anyway, first of all, I know the camera might be a little blurry. I'm working on fixing it. I'm not very good with technology, for those of you who aren't aware, so I apologize if it's blurry. To me, it looks okay, but I will work on getting a crisper image. It is not a problem with my, like, the material that I have. Like, the camera is good quality, and, like, the computer's fine. It's just the fact that I'm an idiot. I'm sorry. I remember last time I posted a video like this, I got a lot of comments about it. Also, very exciting. I know I haven't talked really about our subscriber count in a while, but we are rapidly approaching 150K subscriber on youtube.com/WolfieVGC, best YouTube channel ever, best YouTuber, best, most technologically savvy person. So that's really exciting and also really sad. It does mark the end of an era for me, the end of most of my life, actually, where I refused to customize my trainer. I did promise Mr. Alpharad, Dr. Alpharad, I'm very sorry, that I would customize my trainer at 150,000 subscriber. And so, unfortunately, we will probably reach there in a week or so. So, although I am happy to have more subscriber, I am sad to have to customize my trainer. So, yeah, that's that. Anyway, today's video, we are talking about basically a debate that's been going on. Debate's not really the right word. So, basically, for those of you who don't know, I've been playing Pokemon competitively for... This is my 10th season, so it's going to be 10 years. I started in 2011 when I was a freshman in high school, years and years ago, back on Pokemon Black and Pokemon White, when those games came out, and I've been playing ever since, and I've competed in every World Championship since then, and basically, what I'm saying is that I'm a veteran, right, and I've been competing at the highest level for my entire career, and there's one of the things that has kind of been a narrative that I've seen kind of pushed, or I wouldn't say pushed, because it's not like... I would say present. I think present is a better word. But one kind of common train of thought that comes up over and over and over again is that in competitive Pokemon, everybody uses the same Pokemon and people can't use their favorites. And people really don't like that. I'm not going to say fact, because in my opinion, it's not a fact, but we'll get to that later. But they don't like that, how that looks, right? People often criticize... This happens to this day on Twitter. Somebody, like, Extra was popular in an online tournament, and people were, like, quoting it at me, saying that, like, the format was bad because Pokemon were popular. But anyway, I think part of the reason why one of the most, if not the most famous World Championship victory in 2014 was Seijin Park. And for those of you who don't know, though I imagine many of you do, Seijin used Pachirisu, and for whatever reason, that was touted as, oh, look, like, this guy's amazing. He won with his favorite Pokemon, Pachirisu. I'm not actually sure if Pachirisu is Seijin's favorite Pokemon, but this is the narrative, right? You hear what I'm saying? Like, now, like, we have a hero, like, we have somebody who uses their favorites. And to be clear, I think Seijin is amazing, and I think his victory is incredible, and I think he's an amazing player. I'm not taking anything away from him. I think I'm just talking about kind of the perception of that versus Raichu. When I won, I didn't get any of the same treatment, and in terms of... That sounds bad. I'm not saying, like, oh, I deserve the same treatment, but I just thought it was interesting. Like, Pachirisu and Raichu, in my mind, are very similar Pokemon. They both are, like, supportive electric types with kind of decent defense, like, stats, and each of them has, like, one of the best, or had one of the best supporting moves in the game, with Pachirisu learning Follow Me and Raichu learning Fake Out. So in my mind, they're very similar, but that's kind of neither here nor there. Basically, what I'm saying is that there has been this common thread, and people criticize Pokemon, people who do this, seriously. People criticize VGC players. When I say people, I'm talking about people who follow the scene more casually, I would say, which is fine. I think it's awesome that people want to watch competitive Pokemon. But a lot of people will criticize, this narrative, and they'll say, they'll point to 2015 or 2016. For those of you who don't know, at the 2015 World Championships, 7 of the top 8 teams they followed the same basic archetype. It was called Chalk. It was Cresselia, Heatran, Amoonguss, Landorus, Therian Form, and Kangaskhan, Mega Kangaskhan, and oftentimes would have Thundurus as the last Pokemon as well. That was just like a very solid core, very solid composition. And I guess as long as we're making this video, I will talk a little bit about why I don't like that narrative as a competitive player, although of course I do understand it. And the reason is that basically, in Pokemon, the way that you train your Pokemon, the specific move choices and the items that you give them, those choices all are incredibly relevant. And so the example that I like to give is at, this is a little loud actually, let me turn it down. Sorry. But yeah, the example I like to give is that in 2011, my first season, that was the first year that Thundurus Incarnate form, the base form, was released. And for the majority of the year, myself included, people would run offensive Thundurus. They ran Thunderbolt with Electric Gem, or they ran Hidden Power Flying with Flying Gem, which for some reason activated, don't ask me why. And it was a very offensive Pokemon. And Ray Rizzo won the World Championships that year with bulky Thundurus. Very bulky, I believe Charty Berry, if I'm not much mistaken, and with the intention of, well, I believe the intention was you just like sticking around and using Thundurus' strong support moves with Prankster. And that one innovation, like if you were just to look at the Pokemon itself, you might think, oh, everyone's using Thundurus. Thundurus is so popular. But the way in which Ray used Thundurus, it completely changed the game for the next, for 2012, 2013, and then it's still like, if Thundurus were legal today, we would still use bulky Thundurus, and it's because of how Ray used Thundurus, right? So the way that a Pokemon is trained, the specific EVs you give it, and the item and the move choices, all are very, very relevant. So even if I had the same 6 Pokemon as another player, the way that they could end up playing like entirely different teams because of how we've trained, or what items or what move choices we've specifically made. With all that aside, let's kind of recap just to make sure we're all on the same page. I've played for 10 years, and there's been this narrative of that competitive players don't use. Everyone uses the same Pokemon, right? And to a certain extent, the narrative is not entirely wrong. Now it's too quiet. The narrative is not entirely. Oops, now it's too loud. The narrative is not entirely wrong, in my opinion. Like, the fact is that with Pokemon, there is a metagame, right? Like, we have, in 2019, we had, I don't know, between 700 and 900 Pokemon legal. I don't know exactly, but let's say 700, right? It was certainly more than 700 Pokemon were legal, but we'll just say 700. And it's not evenly distributed. People don't use Wurmple the same amount as they use Groudon, or maybe 2017 or 2019 is a bad example. Let's say 2018, where certain legendaries were legal, but not like the restricted ones. Not every Pokemon is used the same amount, right? For example, I love Chimecho. I think Chimecho is one of my favorite Pokemon, and I have never used it in a tournament. Well, I've never used it in a live event, and I have used it in online tournaments, although really, I used it at a time when Cresselia was around, and there was very, very little reason to use Chimecho over Cresselia, given the differences in stats, right? Like, the presence of Cresselia kind of invalidated using Chimecho, and yeah. So, in that regard, people aren't wrong. There is a metagame, right? When people are asking me about learning Pokemon, I always say, like, listen, it's not as complicated as you might think at first, because you really only, when you're starting out, you really only have to know the top 30 Pokemon. Like, of course, you're going to run into weird stuff, and eventually you need to learn what that does, but, like, as a starting point, if you know what the top 30 Pokemon roughly do, or the sets they could run, you're in good shape, because the majority of teams have this common Pokemon on it. There is some commonality. There's a lot of commonality across the game, and that's just the nature of a game like Pokemon. And actually, it's, in my opinion, it's bad when there's too much variance, because then it's really hard to build a team that covers everything. So, what does that mean? What I'm saying is that there is a metagame, and that, you know, some Pokemon are more popular than others, and it's always been kind of weird to me that there's so much animosity around that, right? Like, how much variance do you need for people to not push this narrative, right? Even now I'm seeing it, like, oh, everyone uses Togekiss, everyone uses Dragapult, everyone uses Excadrill, like, those Pokemon are popular, sure, but I don't understand why the popularity is such a thing that makes people upset. Like, in the World Champion Invitational that Victoria Road hosted, I know that Shoma was something that both Shoma and Sajin did, the second and first places respectively. Something they did that I thought was really interesting is that they didn't run flying moves on their Togekiss. And that choice allowed them to run Shoma ran Follow Me, Helping Hand, Dazzling Gleam, and Yawn, which are, like, basically Shoma was able to fit 3 really good support moves, and Sajin, I think, had Flamethrower, Follow Me, Yawn, and Dazzling Gleam, I think. I'm not sure if he had Helping Hand, or, yeah. But yeah, basically, like, those choices, and even in yesterday's video, I played against a Togekiss with Safeguard, which completely destroyed me. I got absolutely, like, destroyed. There's no other word for it, right? And that I thought was interesting, because it's like, that's a weird move choice, and they had to give something up in order to fit that move, but it was a really interesting choice, and it completely changed the way the battle went. So, I do apologize, I've lost the train of thought I started that thought with, but I'm just going to be open about it, because, as you know, I don't really script things out. I'm just kind of talking off my cusp. What is a cusp? Is it like a shirt? Or that's a cuff. Anyway, so, there's a metagame. Some Pokemon are more popular than others. in general, it's perceived as a negative thing. This idea that there's centralization and that there are Pokemon that are popular and there are Pokemon that aren't really used is generally perceived as a negative thing. And I've kind of given you some history and some context there, and the fact that I don't know where this comes from. I think, and the fact that I don't see like one person kind of just like pushing this, I think it's just like an intrinsic thing that like people feel when they watch and they don't understand it. I honestly think that's okay. Like I have only really ever played Pokemon competitively, like since it's been so long for me, like that I don't know how I would feel if I hadn't kind of been brought up in this game. But the question I started this video out asking, and the one that I assume you want the answer to, is do you have to play the game this way? Do you have to play with only meta Pokemon, or does it depend on the format, or does it depend on your skill level? And my answer to that is, and I think something that doesn't get pushed enough, is that you can win with anything. There was a tournament, and I probably should look this up in advance, but just some examples. There was a tournament where somebody made top 8 at, I believe, Australian Internationals in 2016, and I believe his name was Nicholas, but I'm not totally positive about that, so I don't want to say anything else. But yeah, or maybe it was still Nationals back in 2016. Yeah, so Australian Nationals back in 2016, somebody made top 8 with Magikarp, right? They said they were running, I believe, Big 6, and they said, if I get this, they made a tweet, and they basically said if Magikarp gets X retweets, I'll use Magikarp at Nationals, and they finished in the top 8, right? Other notable examples, my second World Championship, my first World Championship, I brought Emboar, and I won a regional with Emboar. So, and to be clear, I don't know if anybody else used Emboar. It was not traditionally considered to be a very good Pokemon. And that's okay. We love Emboar. We stand Emboar in this household. Best firefighting type. Best starter ever. So yeah, but that was 2011. That was years ago. 2012, I brought Executor to Worlds. I got second place with it. I brought Regigigas to Regionals. I got second place with it. Regigigas, brought some other weird stuff. I had like Choice Scarf Chandler, though that wasn't that weird. Anyway, and then 2013, I used a really creative team with Magmar and Registeel and Gliscor and Hippowdon, which are all good in singles and not very good in doubles, and I didn't do very well at the time, right? I'm not really trying to go through myself year by year, but I guess like, let me make my point and then I'll give some examples. How about that? I feel like that would make more sense to y'all. You can your Pokemon choices, your favorite Pokemon, for example, Chimecho, might not be optimal. It might not be the best thing for the metagame. It might not be the best thing for the tournament. It might not be the best thing for your team, right? However, that being said, Pokemon is a game where you can win with anything, right? I think another player that really exemplifies this is Ashton Cox, who, although recently has started to run more standard stuff, when he first started, ran, I'm just going to say it, completely, like, off-the-wall stuff. Like, really weird stuff. Choice Specs, Bold Gengar, Probopass he's brought at some point, I think. Like, his breakout, what I believe to be his breakout tournament was with Dryskin Heliolisk with Sun. Because his Dryskin Heliolisk, and here's the thing, his Dryskin Heliolisk was shiny. It didn't even have perfect IVs, but he had a shiny Dryskin Heliolisk, and even though Solar Power was better in every way, he wanted to use his shiny Pokemon. And I believe he got top 16, or he made day 2 at that tournament at the very least. And that's what I think of as Ashton's breakout performance. And that's an example of somebody using a Pokemon they wanted to use, even though it wasn't optimal. You don't need to be optimal to win. That's not how Pokemon works, right? Pokemon, you want to give yourself as many chances as you can to win the game. But you can win the game even if you do dumb stuff, right? Like, plenty of EV spreads people use aren't optimized. Like, you know, like plenty of Pokemon choices probably aren't the best thing for the team, but it's, you know, it's common. Last year at US Nationals Finals, I played against somebody named Graham from Australia, who actually makes videos on YouTube, so check him out. He's a nice guy. And he had Mega Medicham on his team, and it was like that was a big narrative. Mega Medicham, although I know if you're a singles player might seem common, had like no usage. It had like 0 CP or something, like probably not 0, but like very, very, very little, and nobody really thought of it as good. But Graham got second at the tournament using Mega Medicham, and you know, he could have won. He was one set away from winning. And so you can always do like weird Pokemon choices, right? And I think that's something that I don't know if I haven't had anything like as popular as Sagen's Pachirisu, but I've always also used weird Pokemon, right? Like I know I've used Parastrap, which is a weird strategy. I used Charizard X, which is not traditionally thought of as good, to win a regional and get top 16 at Worlds. And day 1 Worlds, 5 wins, 0 losses to 5 wins, 3 losses, eliminated day 1. Thank you, Charizard X, as well. Yeah, like, I don't know, like, you can, basically, I guess what I'm saying is that I will not sit here and tell you that, like, you can definitely win with your favorite Pokemon, that, like, you know, you will be using, if you want to use Caterpie, right, that you can definitely win a tournament with it. But I'm also saying that it's not definite that you cannot win a tournament with it, right? Like, is it might not be the thing that gives you the best odds, but as we all know, you don't need the best odds to win, right? Like, that's what gambling is, right? You have bad odds, like the casino, like, we all know the casino's making money, right? They wouldn't stay in business if it wasn't profitable for them. The mass of people in general lose money. If you like the casino benefits and the individual buyers or participants in the casino are losing money. However, if I go to the casino and I've just been watching Wolfie Glick stream, which is known to give you good luck, and I decide to go all in on a 30% horn drill hit, right? And I hit my horn drill, I as an individual can benefit. That's kind of what I'm saying here, is that, like, in general, the people who make creative Pokemon choices are probably not going to do as well as people who make, well, that analogy actually isn't great because sometimes a creative Pokemon can catch people off guard. So, yeah, but I think you see what I'm saying, right? Like, normally, and not 100%, like, normally a Pokemon that isn't popular is not popular because it's not the best. There's a lot of examples of that, so don't take that out of context. Like, I could sit here and talk for a while about Pokemon that, like, are really good, but people just haven't realized, and especially in this format where there's probably a lot of Pokemon that are really good, but, like, people haven't figured out. For example, I'll give one example. I think the way that Seijin used Dragozolt in the Invitational was brilliant. I think that was incredibly intelligent, where he used it as a Dynamax Pokemon, because Hustle's so bad, but when you Dynamax, you get 100% accuracy. So, anyway, I thought that was an example of a Pokemon that I actually think could be really good. Seijin's team also had Darmanitan Galarian form, which is like not used very much, and a couple other niche picks as well. The Simeon, which is really good. So those are examples of, like, Seijin using weird Pokemon. Somebody using weird Pokemon, but they're actually being good and kind of underexplored right now. So sometimes Pokemon aren't popular because they haven't been explored as much, and sometimes Pokemon aren't popular because they're not as good as something that exists. For example, me and Chimecho in 2012 or 2013, because Cresselia was around, and there was really no reason to use Chimecho over Cresselia. However, I'm sure that if there's 100 timelines, and I bring Chimecho to a tournament and all of those timelines, right, I'm not going to win zero. I'm not going to win zero of them. I think I'll win a couple of those tournaments with the Chimecho, or maybe my goal isn't to win. Maybe my goal is to get some CP, or maybe my goal is to make top cut or J2 or whatever, right? I think you can do that even with a team that is suboptimal, and I know that as somebody who has won tournaments with teams that are suboptimal. In fact, most of my teams that win tournaments are suboptimal, right? They have weird choices that I was like, I want to use this thing because it's quirky and I like it, or I want to use this Pokemon because it's cool, or like I want to use Paris Trap because I like Paris Trap, right? I wasn't sitting there and going, this is the best call for the tournament. I was saying, I want to use this team because I like this team. And so, I feel like that's all I want to say. I know this is probably a little all over the place, as are all my videos, so I'll probably get some mean comments. Thank you, mean commenters. Thank you very much. I read your comments. It doesn't have a big effect on me, but I do remember it at times like this. Yeah. But yeah, I'm pretty sure that's it. So, thank you so much for watching. I hope that I kind of answered that question for you of, you know, can you win, should you, would you, could you maybe use your favorite Pokemon, or should you use Pokemon that are traditionally thought of the best? And the answer is, in a word, it depends. In 2 words, it depends, right? If your goal is to win, if you were like, I really want to win this tournament, I don't care how, maybe take something standard that's been explored more. Maybe it's better, you know, depending on the tournament, to do something that you know other people haven't prepared for, right? If you're going into Dallas and you're not prepared for Dragapult, Dallas being the first American event of the season, or Leipzig, I think. Is it in Leipzig this year? There's a European event, I believe, in Leipzig the week before. Or is it Bochum? Is it Bochum or Bochum? I think it's Bochum. Anyway, wherever that tournament is, I believe in Germany. If you're going into that tournament without preparing for Dragapult, you're probably going to have a bad time, because Dragapult looks like it's a very good Pokemon, and lots of people are using it, right? Or if you're not prepared for Bronzong Rhyperior, like there's you know, most people who do well at the tournament, I expect, will have answers, or will at least have prepared against those strategies, but they might not have prepared for, you know, Chimecho Slaking, which neither of those are in the game, but that's not really the point. You know, like something weird. They might not have prepared for, you know, Seijin had saved Dracozolt for one of those tournaments, and even though it wasn't getting any usage, or, you know, Arctovish or Arctozolt, like one of those, like something that hasn't been used, you know what I'm saying? So sometimes having the element of surprise on something not as good is better than having, you know, something that's technically better but more people are prepared for. A lot depends on the tournament. Anyway, so I guess that's all I'm saying. It depends, right? It depends on what you want. It depends on what your value system is, right? Do you get more, like, I know people who feel very strongly that, like, they would rather lose with their favorite Pokemon than conform to what other people are doing. And for a while, honestly, I was like that too. I feel like I've become less less like that over the years, but like that's kind of what led to my big defeat in 2013. Was I was too stubborn to realize that what I was doing, the Pokemon I was using were bad, or we're not optimal, we shall say. I still got 3 wins, but anyway, I think that's all I want to say. Thank you so much if you've made it this far. I know this video is a little long for a discussion video, but I didn't want to rush it, so yeah. I also didn't want to prepare for it, so that's also probably part of the problem. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I will see you tomorrow for the next video. Goodbye.